There's a battle between two congressmen. Indiana Congressman Andre Carson is calling out New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer for blasting House members who voted against a resolution supporting Israel and those who just voted President. Gottheimer posted this on social media. Last night, 15 of my Democratic colleagues voted against standing with our ally Israel and condemning Hamas terrorists who brutally murdered, raped, and kidnapped babies, children, men, women, and elderly, including Americans. They are despicable and do not speak for our party. Carson said this to CNN's Manu Raju about those comments.
He's cowardly. I think he's not acting in the role as a member of Congress. I think he's shown himself to be very emotional. Like most cowardly people, when you confront them, they're afraid. I'm unafraid of the guy. And if he wants to call us despicable, I'm saying he's a coward and he's a punk. And he should remember why the people sent him here. And if he wants to play some kind of tough guy or gangster, we can handle it like gentlemen, or we can get into something else.
In a statement to CNN, Gottheimer responded to Carson by saying, "I'll sit down with Mr. Carson anytime to talk about how we can bring the hostages home, including all Americans, provide immediate humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians being used as human shields, and crush Hamas and all terrorists seeking to do us harm." You know, Renita, when you go there, you can expect a response, and Carson didn't hold back.
Right, and Carson was right to not hold back. Representative Gottheimer has no idea what he's talking about, because for him to say that Representative Carson does not represent Democrats and does not represent our party, he did get elected by Democratic voters. So I think he does represent, as I mentioned before, what is a growing number of voices who are saying this is wrong. They have read the history on this. They understand what is going on in real time, and people are familiar with what I would say is up-to-date information on why they feel the way they feel about this conflict. And the fact, I'm going to tell you this, the fact that you had 9 people who voted against the resolution and then 6 people who just decided to vote present, so that's a lot, is what I want to say. I do want to explain what the 6 who voted present mean. That means when a representative is in their seat, they are present, but they are unwilling to cast a vote. So that means that they don't agree with the resolution and they don't disagree. So really, you can kind of count those 6 as, I mean, unless you can get, the only way that resolutions and bills pass are when you have enough support to actually pass it. So if you can't affirmatively vote for something, then the only alternative is that you don't fully agree with what is on the paper. And so you can kind of count those 6 as in with closer to being in with the 9 than the rest of the folks who voted in favor of it. So I'm glad that Carson took it there. I think he was right to take it there because Gottheimer is wrong. And I think that this is just, this is one of the things that Democrats get wrong in trying to tell people what to think, how to think. And if you don't think a certain way, then you're just stupid, when we know that we are a party that is more like a coalition of different backgrounds coming together versus the Republican Party, which is essentially just white men and women.
I'm a Congo. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, they joined Carson by voting against the measure. Representative Pramila Jayapal, Joaquin Castro, Ayanna Pressley, they all voted present.
Look, this also goes back to what the United States did in the United Nations as relates to the resolutions that were attempted to be passed there. When you look at the actual language of the resolution, which I've read over, you can completely understand why this group would be against the language of it. I've seen Representative Rashida Tlaib condemn what Hamas did, just like she's also condemned, some of the actions of Israel as well. And so when you look at the resolution, everything looks at Israel as being the only group that is, assaulted and that has, needs to be supported. And that's part of the problem of the resolution. Look, we have to get past this point where you're not allowed to have dissent or differing opinion. If we're trying to bring peace to a situation, we have to be mindful of taking in all sides. One of the reasons why so many people at countries in the United Nations were upset with the United States' first proposal was because they used that language of Israel has the right to defend itself. That's how they started the document, which is basically like the equivalent of I feared for my life, but these officers of Black Lives Matter. People feel like they can do anything once you use certain terminology. And so I believe that if people are going to be true leaders in the House, they need to come together. Remember that this country was founded on dissent and has the right, people should have the right to dissent today. And so really when it comes down to it, people should be able to speak their mind, and we should, and lastly, let's be mindful of the fact that there are over hundreds of Palestinian American people who are trapped in Palestine right now. There's no conversation about what's happening with them. Our people, we need a joint resolution that also condemns a lot of the Islamophobia that's going on as well. And so this is not the time for people to try to say it's you're either with us or against us. That's not how it's going to work. And Roland, we talked about this a little bit last week. My last point is that Biden really needs to get a fix on this, because he can't afford to lose any votes going into 2024. And a lot of disaffected youth people, and youth voters in particular, but not only youth, are looking for reasons to not show up. And Arab Americans are losing faith in Biden. And I believe that the Biden administration has done much to help Israel not be more aggressive in its response behind the scenes. But a lot of the language right now is making people say, man, you just as bad as Netanyahu, and we're not going to mess with it. He has to remember that his base is here, and he has to be a little bit more careful with how he nuances this as well.
Julian, that is an important issue because the poll numbers don't lie, and there is a lot of dissension, a lot of anger. And look, he may have had 7 million or whatever votes in 2020, but it was extremely close in Wisconsin, won by 20,000 votes, 12,000 votes in Arizona. You look at the close results in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Georgia. And Michigan is a place where there are a lot of Arab Americans, and they vote. And so you're talking about an international conflict. You're talking about political. He has to bridge a lot of different things right here. But you have to factor in what is the role this could play 53 weeks from now.
Roland, the challenge here is that Americans do not read history. If you read history, you would understand Palestinian anger. You would understand what Hamas was trying to do. Now, none of us, nobody on this show, no human being says what Hamas did was right. As Malcolm laid it out, 1,400 people, door to door to door to door. But what he did not lay out was the fact that between 2008 and 2023, more than 6,400 Palestinian people were exterminated by Israeli activity. What he did not lay out, he got halfway to it, but did not, is the deleterious effect that Netanyahu has had on any kind of peaceful activity. And so Andre Carson was right to take Gottheimer on. Gottheimer is indeed a coward, and I don't like to use the word punk. Well, no, actually I do. But anyway, he was out of order, out of line, out of control. There were his colleagues, who he says he'll have a conversation under his conditions. No, he does not get to set the conditions for conversation about legislative action. That is a collaborative process, as Renita has laid out. So what we have here is a situation where the president, who we support, I support, but he has tilted too far to the Palestinian side. And the media, frankly, has done so with the Israeli side. I saw a piece this morning, I think on CNN, where they interviewed this Israeli guy who lost his whole family. Of course, we're all sympathetic. But where's the Palestinian brother or sister who lost his or her whole family? This is what we kind of have to deal with. And so this skirmish between these two congressional members is not the end of the world. It's a year until the election, so it's not the end of the world. But President Joe Biden has the opportunity to reset the terms and conditions of this conversation to make sure that we say all lives matter in this conflict, that you can't just tilt Israel. We have always supported Israel. This country has, sometimes to our detriment. We have not been strong enough, I think, about the rights of Palestinians. And I think those are chickens that are coming home to roost, and unfortunately, with all kinds of lives on the line.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Unfiltered video in just one moment. Curl Prep Natural Hair Solutions. It's an amazing organic product, folks. Two-step curl defining system for women, men, and children. Now look at this video here and you can be the judge. Folks are lining up to see the product in action at various hair shows, and when they take a seat to try it, they don't believe it's actually their hair. Now you can buy the product at curlprep.com. Again, that's curlprep, curlprep.com. It works on all types of hair. Use the code Roland, lowercase letters, of course, to get a 20% discount. It's just simply 2 steps. They have sweet butter and sweet defining gel, both at curlprep.com. And of course, parents, you can remove the ouch. Y'all know what that's all about. You will love the system because you can comb the product through your child's hair with your fingers. Seasoned Saints, they also love the product, and the line has products that are great for twists, braids, locks, weaves, even those wigs and extensions. It's all at curlprep.com. Again, use the code Roland, lowercase letters, to get a 20% discount. You won't believe it's your hair.